Yep.
Okay, we're going to call to order the Elmont Village Zoning Board of Appeals. This is our regular meeting scheduled for today, March 9th. Let's do a roll call first.
Tedeschi, Alec,
Here.
Roach.
Here. Okay, tonight's agenda is before the members here. Is there any additions to the agenda before we approve it? Additions? Need a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes from our last meeting on November 10th. In your packet is the copy of the minutes from that meeting. Any comments, or if not, I just need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting on November 10th, you said?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Minutes are approved from November 10th, 2022. Okay. At this point, we're going to open up the public hearing regarding the variance request for 7804 Yorkshire. So at this point, for the public part of the hearing, anybody from the public that wishes to have comments made can come to the front. Sure. Sure.
Good evening. My name is Greg Roll. I'm lucky enough to be the son-in-law of the people that own the home directly across from where the present building and the variance is requested. They're essentially right in the backyard of my in-laws where the building is being taken place. I first became aware when my father-in-law said, hey, you know, they had built the house adjacent to that particular house, no problems. All the neighbors get along. It's a great community. And then his concern was it seemed to be a little bit pushing on his lot. I didn't know what that really meant because I'm just a litigator. So I asked my partner who does this for a living. And he said, yeah, there's this back space. You gotta comply with an ordinance. So you gotta look at the ordinance. So we look at the ordinance. And then by the time we looked at the ordinance, you had already sent out the notice of this hearing for variance. And clearly the ordinance requires a 40-foot back. The first thing I did is contact the gentleman who's the builder just to see what's up, what are the plans, and he indicated, you know, significantly that his architect initially drew the plans and neglected to include the enclosed patio back portion. And because of that, when his excavators came out, they built it to the present plan, didn't include that portion. So they only let themselves 3 feet to operate with. And because of the nature of the porch and enclosure, you're talking about a 13-foot incursion on that 40-foot allotment, initially at least. So he says, well, I've got a fix. And the fix is, hey, I'm going to either shorten it or whatever. And instead of 13 feet, it's going to be 8. And I appreciate that. And unfortunately, you know, there was this place, it was never red flagged. So he kept dumping dough into getting this thing done. And I'm not sure if it's hit for him. I guess there's a difference of understanding as to whether he's doing it for himself for a purchase or for sale. I got 2 different stories, but whatever it might be, he obviously is very proud of the house, and he should be. It's going to be nice. Unfortunately, here's our issue. If you look, and I just did some brief canvassing of the law. The seminal case in this area of the law is called Calibut versus Charter Township of Commerce. It came out, I think, right around 2014. Actually went to the Supreme Court and then actually went then to federal court. That's how bunch of these people were fighting over a pool. And the pool was built like 3 feet. There's a huge pool, huge houses, beautiful, lot of land. But for 3 feet of incursion, they took issue with the pool. The pool was 150 grand. And of course, the owner of the pool said, can I do something instead of tearing it down for $150,000 investment? And they went, of course, hired all these top shot lawyers, and they went here, there, and everywhere. And the bottom line is the court came to the conclusion as follows. It said, if you're the one, because of your actions, you need a variance, you don't have standing. If by something that you did, an error that you made, and it's your fault, you can't undo it at the expense of someone else's property. That's essentially what this Calibut and the other cases that are cited in there say. So, long story short, and I appreciate that this was not a malicious intent action. I mean, of course, he wanted to do it right. It was an omission by his architect not to include the enclosure on the diagram, and a whole host of factors occurred after that, cascading results, including his people digging a lot, and unfortunately too close to my parents' backyard. Now, after I found that out, I looked for a soft landing for everybody, because if they're going to be neighbors, I don't want anyone to be, upset with each other if we could work something out. So I called up the Homeowners Association president, who's having a good time in Marco Island right now, and called me back and said, listen, no privacy fence pursuant to the HOA rules. There's only one person that has a privacy fence. It was grandfathered in back in the day. He wanted to tear it down and rebuild another nicer one, and they said no. So the privacy fence fix is not an option. I don't know, and I have not seen the alternate plans that the gentleman indicated he was going to submit. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how far, what it looks like from the vantage point of my in-laws' backyard. I can tell you that they did distribute some arborvitae there to kind of hide it, if you will, but they're only 6 feet tall. So the long story short, the concern that my parents have is twofold. One is that, I live on 2 acres. If someone tried to take 13 feet of my 2 acres, I would still be upset. Not as much, because they don't have 2 acres. Okay, this is essentially their retirement place. And whether they want to sometimes sell in the future, that's going to negatively impact that opportunity. And the concern is, hey, when you look at the law, the person who made the mistake is supposed to be the one that has to eat it, not my parents who are innocent. That's what the law says. That's my understanding of how this happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. I try to do my homework on it. I did reach out to everyone that I could. I left a whole bunch of messages on your message machine too. But that's how I see it, and that's the concern that we have. And as I understand it as well, there's not really a middle ground. I'm trying to understand, being a lawyer, this is something you can negotiate. I was kind of told that's kind of yes or no. I know you guys have in the past dealt with that property division where the guy had 2 lots, it was unified, and then you let him have the 2 lots again over that tree issue. I understand that. I was trying to find a similar case, and there's not, because I think this is the 3rd case that I know of that's come before you. So there's not really a track record about how you guys work it. But again, I'm here not to cause trouble for somebody. The last thing I want to do. But honestly, my parents are concerned. And that makes their daughter concerned. And then that makes me really concerned. So I think I pretty much articulated our position. If you want me to field any questions or provide any information, I can do that for you. I can give you all the sites and all the law that I campus as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that has any comment before we kind of discuss it here?
Am I allowed to speak now?
Yeah, absolutely.
My name's Derek. I'm the builder, and I will be the owner of the house once I get it finished. And I just wanted to reiterate what he said was partially true. It was an oversight basically by the surveyor. So the surveyor didn't put it on the plot plan before it got to the excavator. If I would have known about it, that there was going to be an issue, I would have pushed the house forward to be within the setback. I do have 2 revisions of the covered deck. It's a clear air covered deck. So basically there's no siding to it. It's just a extrusion of the truss that comes out with just posts that come down. The original plan called for it to be about 16 feet out off of the house. And I got with my architect and I said, I need to have some kind of a backup, just to shorten it up. And he gave me 2 versions of it. One brings it down to 13. I'm 3 feet away from the setback currently, so that means I would be into the setback 10 feet. There's another version here that I have that's roughly 10 feet minus my 3 that I'm allowed, gets me about 7 feet into the setback. Again, I'm not trying to upset neighbors or anything like that either. It's kind of like my house, the way I designed it. It's that the way that faces, it's just going to get direct sun all day long. It doesn't really make sense for me to use my deck if it's just going to be, a steamer every day. So it's just a nice addition to have. I built several houses in the subdivision. I'd be more concerned about the number of power lines that are going in around the place than covered decks. But other than that, I have the 2 revisions. If you guys wish to review them, take a look at them. That's all I got.
Are these the revisions that you handed us that he's talking?
So do you have a full-size revision?
I didn't have time to do it. I just got the 8x10s.
Can you review the paperwork distributed to our ZBA board just to make sure that they've got the updated revisions that you're referring to?
You want me to give you copies?
Or just see if this is the same as what you have. It shows, like you said, the 13.6 and the 10.
Yeah, so these are same thing.
Okay. Just wanting to make sure we got the same thing you're talking.
Yeah, this is a picture of one I built in the rear of the sub where it just extends out. Nothing on the sides or anything like that. So that's what it looks like underneath.
And with the 2 revisions, the one, you're still going to be 7 feet beyond the.
Yeah, so as far as the deck goes, from what CCA had told me, they said I can go roughly 10 feet into the setback with the lower portion of the deck. And then, of course, the covered portion of it, I have to ask for permission for that. So, and obviously this is bigger, much bigger. This is 16 feet off the house, so I'm not asking for that. I understand I don't want to intrude on everybody's space and get too far back to the lot line, but and this is a neighbor up the street where he's only got like a 5-foot overhang. To me, this is useless. That doesn't do anything. You can't even put a table on that. So, yeah, at minimum, I think what I'd be looking for is probably worst case scenario would be the shorter version. Would be that one right there. Okay.
Which would be the 10-foot with 10-foot with the rough over the whole 10-foot.
Roughly, yeah. Plus or minus. Depends. If you go off the foot, the foundation wall where the base sticks out 2 foot 6 inches off the foundation.
And that's where it looks like it's coming from, is the front part of the bay.
Yeah. And I should probably address them too. If there's something they want me to do landscaping wise, like put an arborvitae fence across the back or something, I'd be willing to do that too as well. Like I said, I gotta live there, so.
Right. Right. Oh, and that's, I mean, we're not here to make you mad. I mean, we're here to try to help figure the problem out. Right, which this one is still three. Three passed for the flat work.
This one.
Right.
That was the 3 pass for the floor of it or the overhang?
Well, it's three to the front edge of the deck, which if you matched the roof to that, it would still be a 3 over.
3 over.
I mean, does he have anything? To me, if you make the exception
And
for
it's also
one,
live streaming too.
and the next guy comes along a month from
Yep.
now,
Mhm.
you're gonna make it for everybody. It within the, what the code says, it gets within the code. I mean, if it was a foot or, 6 inches or, I don't know, that's a tough one. You got something to say?
I have, no, if.
Yeah.
Sorry, but if you, public comment, if you want my report, I can give the report. That's all.
One more public comment here. Hi.
Hi, my name is Kelly Roll, and my parents are the owners of the house. I understand that I'm going to assume it wasn't malicious, that it was a mistake, but the law is the law. Period. The law is the law. And my parents who, had this house built to be their retirement home, I'm not understanding how now it's someone else's mistake that they made is now becoming their problem. It's not fair to them. They're senior citizens. This is not something they should have to even be thinking about, right? So, and if they do decide that if they wanted to move, I mean, this could affect their property value. It's not fair. The law is the law, and I am very happy to email each and every one the law on this particular nature, the one that my husband spoke about, so that you can read about it. I'm sure you guys all know. And I'm absolutely not trying to cause problems with potential neighbors. But again, this is going right up to my parents' house. It's not like my 2 acres that I have. These are small, tiny lots. And that's a big deal. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening.
Want to close the public hearing?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say we're not trying to cause trouble, and we love our home, and we've done a lot to try and make it the best we can make it. And I don't want to cause trouble with neighbors for sure. If you're going to be living there, we're going to be best friends. But I just don't want to have problems, and I hope that we can come to some kind of, good agreement. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you have ordinances to control how things happen, in neighborhoods, subdivisions, et cetera. That's the purpose of them. And then there are things that happen, like what's happened to Derek, where, you know, the site evaluation that was done missed it, and it got past a certain point where it's become an issue for him. So that doesn't disregard the ordinance. It's just, that's why there's a body called the Zoning Board of Appeal that gives individuals an opportunity to see if something can be done. So that's the whole purpose. If there aren't any other public comments, we'll close the public part of the hearing. And then we'll move forward with Mr. Rowe.
Hi, my name is Alex Ritku. I'm a senior planner with Rowe. We had conducted the site plan review, our staff, for this application before the ZBA. We had sent a letter to the village manager, David Trent, along with our checklist, which we review in the case of Zoning Board of Appeals standards. So if I could, on the screen, we have the application site plan that we received. And as the letter follows is, Rowe received a variance request on behalf of David Pentke, is that correct? For relief of 3 feet rear yard setback from section 313 to allow the proposed deck to extend 13 feet into the rear setback. The subject property is located at 7804 Yorkshire Drive in zone R1 single family residential. The property is currently a vacant parcel. The applicant is proposing building a single family home with a porch. So the action items here are, we've attached the variance checklist, which you have received, which contains additional information for your use. As the Zoning Board of Appeals is aware, to support and approval, all 5 standards in section 11.02.2.A must be found in support of the application. For the application to be denied, it must be found to be inconsistent with one or more standards in section 11.022A. Below, I have action items here that indicate what the ZBA must take. So if you would kind of remove that first point, there was a building, a building permit issued for this. The building footings are within the allowable setback. So there's no inconsistencies in the placement of the building. But due to the Village of Almont zoning ordinance allowing exceptions in rear yard standards for deck in section 313, the applicant does not need a variance from the rear yard setback in section 909. ZBA may approve the variance to grant relief of 3 feet from the 10-foot exception to allow the deck to project into the rear yard setback. The ZBA may deny the variance to grant a relief of 3 foot from the 10-foot exception to allow the deck projecting into a rear yard setback, and as well as the ZBA may postpone the variance to grant relief of a 3 foot from the 10-foot exception to allow the deck to project into a rear setback. So according to standard section 909 in our checklist review, a minimum yard setback must be 40 feet. To allow the proposed setback to extend 13 feet into the request is to allow the proposed deck to extend 13 feet into the required rear yard setback. In section 313, the required is that the deck must be allowed to project not more than 10 feet into the required rear yard setback. A relief of 3 feet from the 10-foot is what they're requesting. So before I get ahead of this, the applicant, without a request from the ZBA, can build a porch out and still within the setback and be at essentially 7 foot. So if there's a 7-foot porch, they would be within the setback requirements for a patio there. So, so for the standards of approval, the first standard is for which the variance is being granted would unnecessarily prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or would render conformity unnecessary burdensome. So we found that there is nothing in support of that. Consultants finding in opposition the rear yard setback standards does not render the use of the property unnecessary and burdensome. Since there is an exception of 10 feet, the applicant would propose a 3-foot shorter deck and meet the, as I stated, the sections 313. The applicant could also revise the proposed drawings and move the proposed structure to the north 3 feet to meet the exception of the proposed setback. So I know that's not really an option right now to move the building, but if there's anything, the applicant could add some space, if you will, to the porch or the front of the building to, as a possibility. Standard number 2, the variance would be substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners in the zoning district, and a lesser relaxation of the standard would not provide substantial relief to be more consistent with justice to others. We did not find the support of that. We found an opposition that the applicant could move to propose principal building, be within a required setback, and could decrease the size of the proposed porch. Standard number 3 is the problem is due to the circumstance unique to the property and not to the general conditions of the area. The only thing we could find in support was that the property is located within a regulatory wetland, and that could have possibly influenced the position of the principal building and porch. Our findings in opposition was that the need for variance is not due to the unique circumstances of the property. Standard number 4 is the problem that resulted in the need for variance was not created by the applicant or previous owners of the property. We could not find in support of that. We could find in opposition that the need for a variance was self-created, choosing the size and location of the principal building and porch. The applicant could adjust the location of the proposed home and propose a deck to meet the exceptions in section 313. And then finally, item number 5, issuance of a variance would still ensure that the spirit of the ordinance is observed, public safety secured, and substantial justice done. The only thing we could say in support of this is that the proposed porch is not enclosed structure, so the likelihood of a fire spreading is less. There is 7 feet separation between the proposed structure and the neighboring property line. On the neighboring property line, there's also an open space setback. In opposition, we find that the fire code recommends a 10-foot separation between buildings to ensure fires do not quickly spread from building to building. Granting the variance would allow a flammable structure within 7 feet of the neighboring property line. The zoning board has an option to approve with conditions, to approve or deny the applicant. And then in this case, the 2 members of the ZBA would be, if there's a split decision, that would be a denial of approval. There's a sample motion included in our checklist at the very back if you wish to make a decision. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So you said something about this, he could go 7 foot and we wouldn't even be here tonight.
That's correct.
So even with his proposed going 10 foot, he's still asking for. My only concern on it is, and it's, I mean, I've never met any of these people. It would be if we give 3 foot here, in a month from now, someone comes up and you say no to them. you've opened up a court battle. Because they're gonna come back in and say, well, you just did it. I mean, I know mistakes happen, but I mean, to give the 3, I mean, I get it's not enclosed. I get, I'm sure it'll be a beautiful home. But if it falls back to the surveyor or it falls back to the excavator or whoever the fallback is on, I would press on them, try to get something back out of them. I mean, unless something come up different, I can say,
In your review, I'm not hearing anything that's, there's something unique to the property. There's, you covered all the variables that are required to be recovered, or covered. And there's nothing unique, special, etc. Other than, unfortunately, it's your preference to have this larger deck, and the ordinance doesn't allow for that. So, to Jim's notion, that's part of the consideration on granting variances is there some unique circumstance that would allow for it? And if there isn't, and you're just granting variances, then what's the ordinance worth? The ordinance isn't worth what it's written on at that point. Ordinances are there to provide standards and guidelines for how things are done. And why do you have this meeting?
Yeah, I understand your ordinance, but
Because you're allowed to request a variance, and in the review of the request, it's up to the board members to see if there was some underlying circumstance or.
so no variances ever get approved.
No, never said that. I don't know. I guess I could go look up court case, but I mean, there can be, yes.
The reason being is similar to the other public comment, is that this is not the variance request is not a unique or substantial hardship. This is essentially an own doing. And so in that circumstance, there wouldn't be variance requests based on that. And so, yeah, variances, there's a standard for variances, and particularly in this case, there would be a precedent set. And so that precedent essentially would be the ability for other applicants or future applicants to take legal proceedings against the village if it's established. So in the case of this, unfortunately, the setback, if the building had been essentially moved up to the very front of the front yard setback, there would have been enough enough room within the allowable setbacks to put a 10-foot porch. So if the circumstances were different, if the building were to, if the footers were to be changed and moved, then you could do a 10-foot in the back. And I know that's costly and burdensome to the property owner. So that is.
I just think the covered roof would be a much better look rather than going to Costco, buying all these 12 by 12 foot metal tents and bolting it to the deck. I mean, it's just not going to look right. But whatever.
Jim, anything else? Anything else?
No.
Aaron?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification,
Yes.
based on the report that Mr. Ritku shared with you, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear, and I want to make sure that it's clear from my standpoint as village manager and as zoning administrator, that should the applicant be denied the variance tonight, that his option, which would be in compliant with the ordinance, in Mr. Ritku's review, is that he could put in a 7-foot porch, and the CCA would approve that because it would fit within the exception to
Correct.
the ordinance that's impacted.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so I just wanted to make sure that the applicant was aware that that option could be pursued. He would be compliant if that's an option that he desires to pursue and stay within the parameters of the ordinance. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that was
Correct.
clear, not only to the applicant, but to the next door neighbors as well, that there could be a porch added, but it would be smaller in nature. So, okay, thank you.
Excuse me. Jim, anything else? We're good? No further comments. We would just need a motion to either approve, not approve, or postpone.
I'll make the motion to not approve the variance request for the setback. How do I want to word it? Due to Rose's explanation.
Analysis. I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Thank you. And there's no old business?
Sir,
None? Okay, anything else?
just a motion
Jim,
to
anything?
adjourn.
Okay, just need a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion accepted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.